There are films you watch, then there are films that become a part of your soul. For an entire nation for lovers of classic cinema here, Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, is not just a movie, it is the feeling of home. It is the golden age of Yeşilçam cinema captured in a single classroom, a timeless story known around the world as the Choice class. It is a piece of cultural heritage, a story passed down through generations, whose every line is known by heart. Its legend was built by an unforgettable brotherhood of actors characters, names that are spoken with reverence. At its heart, the endlessly naive goofy İnek Şaban, a role so perfectly embodied by the legendary Kemal Sunal that it is impossible to imagine one without the author. This was the film that launched him from a talented actor into a national icon, a master of comedy whose face is a symbol of pure joy. Alongside him the impossibly handsome charismatic leader of the class, Damat Ferit, brought to life by the great Tarık Akan. Who could forget their partner in crime, the quick-witted, mischievous engine of every prank, Güdük Necmi, played by the beloved Halit Akçatepe. But reigning over this kingdom of chaos was the one man they called never truly defeat, the legendary Vijay Principal Mahmut Hoja, given a soul of stern but boundless love by the master actor Münir Özkul. His character, Kel Mahmut, was more than a teacher, he was the father of this lost generation of students, the moral compass of the entire story. This cinematic family created a story so powerful, so deeply human, that its laughter its lessons echo far beyond the borders of Turkey. The face of Kemal Sunal, his uniphysical comedy, transcends language, creating a bridge of shared joy that connects Istanbul to Cairo, to Damascus beyond. The pranks the heritage of the Hababam Sınıfı called easily have been pulled in the classrooms of Adile iconic film, Madrasat Allah Musibin, School of Trouble. It is a story that resonates in the heart of anyone who remembers the golden age of their own national cinema, a time when films were made with soul. But behind this beautiful tapestry of culture, laughter tears, lies another story. A story that is rarely told. It is not about the heart, but about the numbers. It is the financial blueprint that allowed this lobubuget masterpiece to become a cultural economic phenomenon. Welcome to Profit in Frames. This is the channel where nostalgia meets the balance sheet. We don't just admire the art of legendary cinema, we dissect the business that built it. We reverse engineer the financial realities of filmmaking, from the scrappy brilliant economics of the Yeşilçam system to the long-term revenue that turns a classic film into a perpetual money-making machine. Today we are opening the books on one of the most beloved profitable films in international cinema history. We will explore the real production budget of Hababam Sınıfı. We will analyze how, with almost no modern marketing, it achieved a level of box office success that is staggering even by today's standards. We will break down the financial genius that created not just one, but a series of sequels calculated incredibly, the decades-long return on investment that continues to this day through television rights streaming. You have memorized their face. Now, we will analyze their fortune. This is the hidden financial story of Hababam Sınıfı. Modern eğlence dünyasında, sanat ve ticaretin kesişimi hiç bu kadar belirgin olmamıştı. Kendini işine adamış sinema tutkunları için sihir perdede gerçekleşir, nefes kesen görseller, güçlü performanslar ve bir nesli tanımlayan hikayeler. Bu sinematik SEO alanıdır, popüler filmler, yeni çıkan filmler ve yakında vizyona girecek filmler hakkındaki tartışmaların çevrimiçi sohbetlere hakim olduğu bir dünya. Film meraklıları, film analizleri için derinlere dalar, her bir film bilgisi parçasını arar ve bitmek bilmeyen film teorileri üzerine tartışır. Burası, bir viral film klibinin bir filmi basit bir yapımdan kültürel bir fenomene dönüştürebildiği, tutku üzerine inşa edilmiş bir manzaradır. İzleyici tepkileri, film memleriyle ateşi körükleyerek ve stüdyoların ancak hayal edebileceği bir etkileşimi yönlendirerek anlatının bir parçası haline gelir. Her yapımın nihai hedefi, o mutlaka izlenmesi gereken filmlerden biri, tüm zamanların en iyi filmleri arasında yerini alan ve büyüdüğümüz klasik filmler gibi aynı film nostaljisiyle değer verilen bir gişe rekortmeni film olmaktır. Bu Hollywood'un görünen, kutlanan yüzüdür. Ancak bu yaratıcı yüzeyin altında, yüksek riskli metrikler ve hesaplanmış risklerle yönetilen karmaşık bir finansal dünya yatar. Bu yüksek CPM analizinin alanıdır. Production Budget, Projected Revenue ve her şeyden önemli olan Return on Investment, ROI, Return on Investment gibi terimlerle konuşan bir dünya. Burada bir film sadece bir hikaye değil, bir varlıktır. Yatırımcılar ve stüdyo yöneticileri, yeni bir markanın Equity Stake Valuation analizini titizlikle yapar, daha tek bir bilet satılmadan Global Gross Forecast tahmininde bulunur. Salaries of Actors kalemini inceler, Operating Expenses kalemini potansiyel monetization streams ile karşılaştırır ve box office performance tahmin etmek için karmaşık modeller oluştururlar. Oyuncu seçiminden pazarlamaya kadar her karar, profitability metrics ve uzun vadeli franchise valuation ile bağlantılıdır. Tartışma, ikonik film sahnelerinden streaming rights licensing konusuna, filmlerle hayran etkileşiminden advertising spend verimliliğine kayar. Bu ikili doğayı, izleyiciye dönük güçlü SEO ve yatırımcı odaklı kritik CPM, anlamak, bir sinema başyapıtının nasıl yapıldığını, pazarlandığını ve nihayetinde karlı bir imparatorluğa dönüştürüldüğünü gerçekten anlamanın anahtarıdır. Bugün, yılın en çok beklenen filmlerinden birini bu iki kritik perspektiften inceleyeceğiz. Başrollerinde Kemal Sunal'ın İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul'un Mahmut Hoca rollerini üstlendiği, Canım Kardeşim ve Mavi Boncuk gibi unutulmaz filmleriyle tanınan usta yönetmen Ertem Eğilmez'in yönettiği ve Arzu Film tarafından yapılan klasikleşmiş hit Hababam Sınıfı'nda, izleyiciler dönüm noktası niteliğinde bir yapımla tanıştı. Yıllar sonra bile, hala Yeşilçam'ın diğer büyük filmleri ve serileriyle, örneğin Neşeli Günler veya Tosun Paşa gibi yapımlarla karşılaştırılıyor ve bu, onun küresel sinema ve Netflix, Disney, Pluto gibi dijital platformlardaki kalıcı etkisini gösteriyor. Bu zamansız film, nesiller boyunca tekrar izlenebilen filmler arasında yerini alarak adeta bir kült klasiği haline geldi. Hababam Sınıfı, sadece bir film değil, bir film nostaljisi kaynağıdır ve eski filmler arasında özel bir yere sahiptir. Sinema hayranları için Hababam Sınıfı, mutlaka izlenmesi gereken filmler listesinin en başında gelir. Ertem Eğilmez'in yönetmenliği, bu filmi basit bir komediden çok daha fazlası haline getirdi. Onu bir türünü tanımlayan klasik yaptı. Filmdeki ikonik film sahneleri, bugün bile viral film klipleri olarak sosyal medyada paylaşılıyor ve milyonlarca izlenmeye ulaşıyor. Özellikle İnek Şaban'ın sakarlıkları veya Mahmut Hoca'nın unutulmaz dersleri, izleyici tepkilerinin hala ne kadar canlı olduğunun bir kanıtı. Film hakkında tartışmalar ve film analizleri, filmin ne kadar derin katmanlara sahip olduğunu ortaya koyuyor. Film meraklıları, Adile Naşit'in canlandırdığı Hafize, Ana ve Tarık Akan'ın canlandırdığı Damat Ferit gibi yardımcı karakterlerin hikayeye kattığı zenginliği hala konuşuyor. Bu sadece eski bir film değil, aynı zamanda tüm zamanların en iyi filmleri arasında sayılan bir başyapıt. Hababam Sınıfı serisi, hayranların favori filmleri arasında o kadar popüler ki, günümüzün popüler filmleri bile onun yarattığı etkiyle rekabet etmekte zorlanıyor. Filmdeki eğlenceli film bilgileri, örneğin çekimlerin yapıldığı Adile Sultan Kasrı'nın bugün hala ziyaret ediliyor olması, filmlerle hayran etkileşimini sürekli canlı tutuyor. Warner Bros. Veya Universal gibi büyük stüdyoların ürettiği Hollywood hitleri bile, Hababam Sınıfı'nın yarattığı samimi ve yerel bağ yakalayamıyor. Bugün birçok sinema tutkunu, bu efsanevi serinin Netflix veya benzeri bir platformda özel bir restorasyonla yayınlanmasını hayal ediyor. Hababam Sınıfı'nın bu kalıcı popülaritesi, onun sadece bir gişe rekortmeni film olmadığını, aynı zamanda bir kültür mirası olduğunu kanıtlıyor. Eğer siz de bu unutulmaz film hakkında daha fazla film analizi ve film incelemesi görmek istiyorsanız, kanalımıza abone olmayı, videomuzu beğenmeyi ve paylaşmayı unutmayın. Ancak izleyicilerin kalbini fetheden her sinema başyapıtının arkasında, kar için titizlikle tasarlanmış karmaşık bir finansal motor çalışır. Yönetim kurulu odalarında Hababam Sınıfı gibi bir film hakkındaki konuşmalar, viral film anlarından çok, filmin equity stake valuation değeri ve potansiyel return on investment ROI, return on investment oranı ile ilgilidir. Dönemin yapım ölçeği, devasa oyuncu kadrosunun salaries of actors maliyetleri ve diğer prodüksiyon masrafları göz önüne alındığında, Hababam Sınıfı'nın production budget kalemi, Yeşilçam'ın diğer büyük yapımlarıyla karşılaştırılabilir düzeydeydi. Bu bütçenin önemli bir kısmı, filmin operating expenses kalemini, yani dönemin pazarlama faaliyetlerini de içeriyordu. Erken yatırımcılar için ilk equity stake valuation, bu yüksek başlangıç maliyetlerine karşılık oldukça iddialı bir global gross forecast tahminine dayanıyordu. Hababam sınıfının kırlılığının ana itici gücü, şüphesiz box office performancı oldu. Finansal modeller, filmin sadece sinema gösteriminden kar elde etmesi için, hem iç pazarda hem de sınırlı da olsa international box office pazarında güçlü bir performans sergilemesi gerektiğini gösteriyordu. Projected Revenue, büyük ölçüde bu hedeflere ulaşmaya bağlıydı ve başarılı bir açılış haftası, tüm finansal gidişatın tonunu belirledi. Stüdyonun Global Gross Forecast tahmini, muhtemelen onu yılın en çok kazanan filmleri arasına sokacak bir rakamı hedefliyordu. Ancak kapsamlı bir monetizasyon strateji, bilet satışların çok ötesine uzanır. O dönem için streaming rights licensing anlaşmaları olmasa da, yıllar sonra televizyon kanallarına yapılan satışlar ve video hakları, devasa bir gelir kaynağı oluşturdu. Bu, genel franchise return on investment, ROI, hesaplanırken kritik bir bileşendir ve filmin yüksek başlangıçtaki equity stake valuation değerini haklı çıkarır. Gişe ve yayın haklarının ötesinde, arzu film, cumulatif ve income miktarını en üst düzeye çıkarmak için şüphesiz bir dizi monetization streams planlamıştır. Bugün olsaydı, merchandising sales kaleminden, İnek Şaban aksiyon figürlerinden üst düzey koleksiyon ürünlerine kadar önemli bir royalty income akışı sağlanabilirdi. Ayrıca, asıl paranın yattığı yer uzun vadeli franchise valuation değeridir. Hababam sınıfı bir hit olduğu için, devam filmlerinin, yan ürünlerin ve bir multimedya evreninin önünü açarak IP'nin genel equity stake valuation değerini önemli ölçüde artırdı. Büyük hissedarları çeken de bu uzun vadeli görüştür. Onlar sadece bir filme değil, potansiyel olarak milyarlarca liralık bir varlığa yatırım yaparlar. Bir markanın profitability metrics değeri, tek bir çeyrekte değil, 10 yıllık bir sürede ölçülür. Güncellenmiş bir global gross forecast, planlanan tüm projeleri kapsayarak çok daha kazançlı bir tablo çizerdi. Ancak büyük potansiyel, önemli bir financial risk ile birlikte gelir. Bu büyüklükteki bir bütçe, Hababam sınıfı gişede beklentinin altında kalsaydı, kayıpların önemli olabileceği anlamına geliyordu. Stüdyo, yıldızlarla dolu bir oyuncu kadrosu, beğenilen bir yönetmen ve yüksek konseptli bir önermenin birleşiminin yatırımlarını riske atmayacağına bahse giriyordu. Markanın nihai equity stake valuation değeri sonuçta izleyici tepkisiyle belirlendi. Ancak ilk finansal mimari gişe başarısı için tasarlanmıştı. Global Gross Forecast iyimserliğini koruyor ve tüm monetization streams planlandığı gibi performans gösterirse, Hababam sınıfından elde edilen cumulative earnings, olağanüstü bir shareholder value'ı sağlayabilir ve arzu film için yeni bir temel marka oluşturabilirdi. İlk Global Gross Forecast sadece bir başlangıçtı. Asıl finansal hikaye, gişe rekortmeni film yapımcılığının yüksek riskli dünyasının bir kanıtı olarak önümüzdeki 10 yıllar boyunca ortaya çıkacaktı. Nihai başarı, sadece sanata değil, aynı zamanda hassas finansal uygulamaya dayanan son equity stake valuation rakamına yansıyacaktı.
The magic of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, rests not only on its story but on the unforgettable performances of its cast. At the very center is Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, a character who quickly became the symbol of innocence and comic relief in Turkish cinema. Sunal's wide smile, clumsy body language and genuine warmth transformed İnek Şaban into a cultural archetype. By 1975, Sunal had begun to appear in supporting roles, but it was Hababam Sınıfı that made him a household name. His portrayal embodied both foolishness and kindness, representing the everyman who stumbled yet never lost his good heart. Countering this chaotic energy was Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, the stern teacher determined to instill discipline into the unruly class. Özkul, with his deep theatrical background and commanding presence, turned Kel Mahmut into more than a disciplinarian. He was a figure of moral authority, embodying values such as responsibility and respect. The tension between Sunal's naive student and Özkul's principled teacher provided the heart of the film's conflict, making every interaction memorable. Beside them, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit brought a different layer to the ensemble. Tall, handsome and charming, Akan was already one of Yeşilçam's most bankable stars in the 1970s. Known for his romantic leading roles, his turn as the mischievous yet likable Ferit demonstrated his versatility. Ferit's playful attitude and flirtatious nature contrasted with the innocence of İnek Şaban, offering audiences a spectrum of youthful personalities within the classroom. Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi delivered sharp wit and comic timing. His stature may have been small, but his presence was enormous. Güdük Necmi's sarcastic lines and clever comebacks added to the humor that defined the film. Akçatepe, who had grown up in cinema, understood comic rhythm deeply, and his contribution made Necmi a fan favorite. The ensemble also included Ahmet Erayman as Hayda Ismail, the lazy yet lovable student, whose sleepy demeanor perfectly embodied the archetype of the carefree dreamer. Cem Gürdüp as Tulum Harry brought physical comedy with his bumbling, clumsy movements, adding another shade of humor. Together, these characters created a classroom full of chaos, each role reflecting a recognizable personality from real student life. Beyond the students, the authority figures gave the film balance. Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana, the school's caretaker, was the nurturing heart of the story. Known for her maternal presence in Turkish cinema, Naşit embodied Hafize Ana with warmth, humor and compassion. She softened the strictness of the teachers and became the surrogate mother for the mischievous boys, grounding the film emotionally. On the other side of authority, Şener Şen as Badi Ekrem, the physical education teacher, represented discipline exaggerated into comedy. His stiff mannerisms and awkward attempts to control the unruly class brought laughter while still portraying the seriousness of the education system. Şener Şen, who would later become one of Turkey's greatest actors, here showed his early comedic genius. Together, these actors formed a perfect ensemble, not a collection of stars competing for attention but a group working in harmony. In the Yeşilçam system of the 1970s, such ensembles were rare, as films often relied heavily on one or two lead names. Hababam Sınıfı was different. Its strength came from blending multiple personalities, each shining in their own way while contributing to a collective portrait of Turkish student life. The chemistry was natural because many of these actors had worked together in other Eğilmez productions, such as Salik Miliwaner and Koyun Indim Seir. This continuity created trust among the performers, and that trust translated into authentic interactions on screen. The audience believed the mischief, the jokes and even the scoldings because the cast moved as a true unit. In Turkish cultural memory, these characters became more than roles, they became symbols. İnek Şaban symbolized innocence, Kel Mahmut discipline, Güdük Necmi wit, Damat Ferit charm, Hafize Ana compassion and Badi Ekrem strictness mixed with comedy. Together they formed a timeless picture of youth, authority and humanity. The magic of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, rests not only on its story but on the unforgettable performances of its cast. At the very center is Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, a character who quickly became the symbol of innocence and comic relief in Turkish cinema. Sunal's wide smile, clumsy body language and genuine warmth transformed İnek Şaban into a cultural archetype. By 1975, Sunal had begun to appear in supporting roles, but it was Hababam Sınıfı that made him a household name. His portrayal embodied both foolishness and kindness, representing the everyman who stumbled yet never lost his good heart. For Turkish audiences who lived through political and economic challenges in the mid-1970s, İnek Şaban provided laughter and a reminder of simple human goodness. Sunal's Şaban persona became so popular that it was repeated across later films, turning him into one of the most beloved comedians in the nation's history. Countering this chaotic energy was Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, the stern teacher determined to instill discipline into the unruly class. Özkul, with his deep theatrical background and commanding presence, turned Kel Mahmut into more than a disciplinarian. He was a figure of moral authority, embodying values such as responsibility, respect and perseverance. Özkul had been trained in traditional Turkish theater and was already regarded as a master actor by the time of the film. His ability to balance strictness with underlying compassion gave Kel Mahmut a three-dimensional quality. The tension between Sunal's naive student and Özkul's principled teacher provided the heart of the film's conflict, making every interaction memorable. Audiences could laugh at Şaban's blunders, but they also respected Mahmut Hoca's role in guiding the boys toward adulthood. Beside them, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit brought a different layer to the ensemble. Tall, handsome and charming, Akan was already one of Yeşilçam's most bankable stars in the 1970s. Known for his romantic leading roles in melodramas and youth films, his turn as the mischievous yet likable Ferit demonstrated his versatility. Ferit's playful attitude and flirtatious nature contrasted with the innocence of İnek Şaban, offering audiences a spectrum of youthful personalities within the classroom. Akan's casting also showed how Hababam Sınıfı merged commercial stardom with ensemble comedy, blending box office appeal with authentic humor. Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi delivered sharp wit and comic timing. His stature may have been small, but his presence was enormous. Güdük Necmi's sarcastic lines and clever comebacks added to the humor that defined the film. Akçatepe, who had grown up in cinema as a child actor, understood comic rhythm deeply. His lifelong connection to Turkish cinema meant he could improvise naturally, and his contribution made Necmi a fan favorite. Necmi was not just a joker, he reflected the type of student who questions authority and mocks the seriousness of school life, which resonated strongly with audiences. The ensemble also included Ahmet Erayman as Hayda Ismail, the lazy yet lovable student, whose sleepy demeanor perfectly embodied the archetype of the carefree dreamer. His slow voice and droopy eyes became trademarks of the role, making Ismail one of the most remembered secondary characters. Cem Gürdük as Tulum Hayri brought physical comedy with his bumbling, clumsy movements, adding another shade of humor. His larger build made him the gentle giant of the class, a figure audiences could laugh with but also sympathize with. Together, these characters created a classroom full of chaos, each role reflecting a recognizable personality from real student life. Beyond the students, the authority figures gave the film balance. Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana, the school's caretaker, was the nurturing heart of the story. Known for her maternal presence in Turkish cinema, Naşit embodied Hafize Ana with warmth, humor and compassion. In Turkish households, Naşit was already seen as the nation's mother, and her role here cemented that identity. She softened the strictness of the teachers and became the surrogate mother for the mischievous boys, grounding the film emotionally. Without Hafize Ana, the film might have leaned too far into strict authority or reckless comedy. She created a middle ground, a character who understood the boys' mischief but loved them anyway. On the other side of authority, Şener Şen as Badi Ekrem, the physical education teacher, represented discipline exaggerated into comedy. His stiff mannerisms and awkward attempts to control the unruly class brought laughter while still portraying the seriousness of the education system. At this time, Şener Şen was at the beginning of his career, often cast in supporting roles. Yet his performance as Badi Ekrem revealed the charisma and range that would later make him one of Turkey's most respected actors. His exaggerated gestures and unique voice intonation became part of Turkish popular culture, quoted and imitated by generations. Together, these actors formed a perfect ensemble, not a collection of stars competing for attention but a group working in harmony. In the Yeşilçam system of the 1970s, such ensembles were rare, as films often relied heavily on one or two lead names. Hababam Sınıfı was different. Its strength came from blending multiple personalities, each shining in their own way while contributing to a collective portrait of Turkish student life. Ertem Eğilmez, the director, was known for his ability to create ensemble films, and his vision ensured that no single actor overshadowed the group. This collaborative spirit was key to the film's success. The chemistry was natural because many of these actors had worked together in other Eğilmez productions, such as Salak Miliwanur, 1974, and Koydun Indim Seir, 1974. This continuity created trust among the performers, and that trust translated into authentic interactions on screen. The audience believed the mischief, the jokes and even the scoldings because the cast moved as a true unit. Their timing was sharp because it came from real camaraderie, not forced rehearsal. In Turkish cultural memory, these characters became more than roles, they became symbols. İnek Şaban symbolized innocence, Kel Mahmut discipline, Güdük Necmi wit, Damat Ferit charm, Hafize Ana compassion, and Badi Ekrem strictness mixed with comedy. Each one represented a different aspect of student and teacher life, allowing audiences from different generations to identify with at least one figure. Together they formed a timeless picture of youth, authority and humanity. The cast's performances ensured that Hababam Sınıfı was not just a comedy but a mirror of Turkish society in the 1970s, making it one of the most enduring classics in the history of Turkish cinema. Behind the laughter and unforgettable characters of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, lay the realities of production, salaries and the financial structures of Yeşilçam cinema. Unlike Hollywood, where budgets often stretched into millions of dollars, Turkish films of the mid-1970s were made with modest sums. The production budget for Hababam Sınıfı was estimated at around 500,000 to 600,000 Turkish lira, considered reasonable for a mainstream comedy of the time. Within this budget, salaries varied according to each actor's fame and standing. Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, though not yet the superstar he would become, earned around 30,000 Turkish lira. His fee was relatively modest compared to the immense popularity the role later brought him. Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, an established actor with years of stage and cinema success, commanded a higher salary, reportedly in the range of 40,000 to 50,000 Turkish lira. Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana, beloved across Turkey, earned a similar amount, reflecting her seniority and cultural impact. Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit, one of the most bankable stars of the 1970s, likely had the highest paycheck among the cast, estimated at around 60,000 Turkish lira. His star power guaranteed box office appeal and producers understood the commercial value he added. Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi, while extremely popular, earned a more moderate figure of approximately 25,000 Turkish lira, consistent with his career stage at the time. Operating expenses also included location costs. Much of Hababam Sınıfı was filmed at Çamlıca Girls' High School in Istanbul, reducing set construction costs. The school environment lent authenticity while also cutting expenses compared to studio-built sets. Technical crews, editing and distribution absorbed a significant part of the budget, yet the producers managed resources efficiently, as was common in Yeşilçam. The film's return on investment, ROI, was remarkable. With a budget under 600,000 Turkish lira, the film went on to draw millions of viewers across Turkey, making it one of the highest-grossing comedies of its era. Though exact box office numbers from the 1970s are hard to verify, estimates suggest that Hababam Sınıfı earned well over 5 million Turkish lira during its initial theatrical run. This meant profitability was achieved quickly, ensuring financial security for the studio and confidence in producing sequels. The ensemble format also proved cost-effective. Instead of relying on one superstar's massive salary, the film distributed earnings among a balanced cast. This strategy reduced financial risk while ensuring that multiple actors drew audiences from different demographics. Families loved Adile Naşit, youth admired Tarık Akan and comedy fans adored Kemal Sunal and Halit Akçatepe. This diversified appeal created a powerful commercial formula. For the actors, the film was not just another paycheck but an investment in their careers. Kemal Sunal became a leading man in dozens of films after Hababam Sınıfı, often commanding salaries above 100,000 Turkish lira within a few years. Şener Şen, though in a secondary role as Badi Ekrem, later rose to prominence as one of the greatest actors of Turkish cinema, with fees rivaling those of Tarık Akan. The profitability of Hababam Sınıfı also shaped Yeşilçam's strategy in the late 1970s. Producers recognized the value of adapting novels, investing in ensemble casts and reusing popular school settings. The film's cumulative income, including sequels, merchandising like posters and later television reruns, cemented its status as a financial success. Ultimately, Hababam Sınıfı was not only a cinematic masterpiece of humor and heart but also a case study in financial efficiency. Its budget discipline, strategic casting and extraordinary return on investment, ROI, made it a shining example of how Yeşilçam turned modest resources into timeless cultural treasures. The plot of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, unfolds not as a survival journey in the literal sense of deserts or wars, but as a survival journey through the rigid structures of Turkey's education system. The story is a suspense-driven narrative of mischief, rebellion and authority, told with warmth and satire. At its heart stands Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, whose innocence becomes the thread through which the class's antics gain an almost blockbuster comparison to larger-than-life comedies of its time. The story structure follows the mischievous class locked in endless schemes against their stern but fair teacher, Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut. The tension between the student's desire for freedom and Kel Mahmut's discipline provides the intense plot twists and emotional stakes that made the film unforgettable. When Kel Mahmut catches the students in lies or schemes, the audience feels the suspense of whether they will finally learn responsibility. This is franchise-level storytelling because the themes proved universal enough to inspire multiple sequels across years. The cinematic drama peaks in scenes where authority and rebellion clash most vividly. For example, when Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi cleverly tricks the teachers, the audience laughs, but when Kel Mahmut delivers heartfelt lessons, the film turns reflective. This balance of comedy and morality created unforgettable scenes that ensured its place as a cinematic masterpiece in Turkish cinema. The film's character development arcs are subtle yet powerful. Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit begins as a flirtatious troublemaker, but even he shows glimpses of maturity under Kel Mahmut's guidance. Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana, the compassionate caretaker, elevates the narrative by reminding audiences that discipline without love is empty. These arcs created a sense of world building within the classroom, as if the school itself was a living microcosm of society. Though produced within Turkey, the gripping narrative of Hababam Sınıfı drew comparisons to ensemble comedies worldwide. Turkish critics at the time compared its cultural influence to the way Italian neorealist comedies exposed social truths. Much like how Amarcord by Fellini built a town of characters, Hababam Sınıfı built a class of unforgettable misfits. Fans of the time, even without modern social media, spread fan theories and jokes about what mischief İnek Şaban and his classmates might pull in the next film. After the release, rumors of deleted scenes circulated in Yeşilçam magazines, and years later, audiences speculated on alternative endings, especially whether the class would ever truly graduate. This type of viral storytelling was ahead of its time, proving that the film's story structure carried not just humor but also a sense of anticipation. The success of the plot lies in its balance. High action sequences like chaotic gym classes with Sene Ersen as Betty Ekrem are set against emotional stakes like heartfelt monologues from Kel Mahmut. This combination created a gripping narrative that rivaled other comedies of the 1970s, such as Tosun Paşa, 1976, and Sut Kardeşler, 1976. In the end, the plot analysis of Hababam Sınıfı shows that its power came not from spectacle but from its universal franchise-level storytelling, unforgettable scenes and a suspense-driven narrative where laughter and discipline coexisted. Behind the humor of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, lies a fascinating financial story rooted in Yeşilçam's unique economics. The production budget of the film, managed by Arzu Film under Ertem Eğilmez, was modest compared to Western productions estimated at around 500,000 to 700,000 Turkish lira, which would be considered a low-budget investment by global standards. Yet through budget efficiency and smart casting, the film achieved enormous return on investment, ROI, return on investment. One major reason for profitability was the cost per scene strategy. Sets were limited, primarily revolving around the classroom and school, which reduced operating expenses. This lean production spending allowed more resources to be allocated to the cast, ensuring that talents like Kemal Sunal, Münir Özkul, Tarık Akan, Adile Naşit, Halit and Sene Ersen received salaries that were competitive for Yeşilçam standards, though still modest compared to Hollywood. Estimates suggest that top stars like Tarık Akan could command fees approaching 200,000 Turkish lira per film during this era. The profitability metrics of Hababam Sınıfı skyrocketed through its theatrical release. By 1976, box office reports indicated millions of tickets sold nationwide. The cumulative revenue was several times higher than the initial production budget, marking it as one of the most successful Turkish comedies of the decade. In today's financial language, its equity returns would be described as exceptional, delivering shareholder-like value to Arzu Film. Moreover, the film's monetization strategy extended beyond cinema halls. In the late 1970s and early 1980s, Hababam Sınıfı gained additional ancillary revenue streams through screenings for Turkish migrant communities in Germany. Later, VHS and television licensing created new layers of content monetization, turning the film into a long-tail revenue generator. This diversification of revenue streams is what modern investors would call a content monetization pipeline, ensuring steady cumulative earnings even decades after release. When compared to other Yeşilçam productions, the film's profit margins were remarkable. While many Turkish films of the era barely broke even due to rising costs and declining ticket sales, Hababam Sınıfı became a franchise profitability case study. Its sequels multiplied the franchise equity valuation, securing long-term sustainability. Analysts today might frame it as a break-even analysis success, where even the first week's earnings covered the entire production spending. The financial resilience of the film is linked directly to its storytelling strength. The humor, relatability and ensemble chemistry generated immense audience engagement, which translated into repeated ticket sales. Families returned to cinemas multiple times, a rare phenomenon in Turkey's 1970s film market. This heightened advertising spend efficiency, as word of mouth became the most powerful marketing engine. By the 1980s, reruns on Turkish state television added another layer of monetization strategy, while merchandise such as classroom-themed posters and novel reprints tied to Rafet Ilgaz's original book created merchandising profitability. Though not as heavily commercialized as Western blockbusters, these tie-ins expanded the global distribution value of the brand. In conclusion, The financial modeling of Hababam Sınıfı demonstrates how a modestly budgeted Yeşilçam comedy could become a franchise profitability giant. Its blend of budget efficiency, strong return on investment, ROI, and multiple ancillary revenue streams ensured that it was not only a cultural treasure but also a financial triumph, a perfect example of profit maximization through storytelling strength. The cinematic storytelling of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, directed by director Ertem Eğilmez, demonstrates the subtle brilliance of visual effects and cinematography within the Yeşilçam tradition. Unlike modern CGI-driven blockbusters, the film's cinematic excellence relies on HD cinematography, stunt choreography and carefully orchestrated camera setups that capture the chaotic energy of a classroom full of students. From the very first scene, the visual storytelling draws audiences into the microcosm of Istanbul's school life, with lighting and scene composition that emphasize both humor and tension. The film's director of photography ensured that every frame of Hababam Sınıfı conveyed memorable scenes that were immersive, whether showing Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban sneaking out during a lesson or Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut delivering a stern lecture. Camera techniques such as multi-angle shots, long takes of classroom pranks and close-ups of reaction shots built a sense of immediacy rarely seen in 1970s Turkish cinema. Even sequences that appear simple, like a student hiding behind a desk, were choreographed as action sequences with blockbuster visuals in mind, creating an early example of franchise-level storytelling through comedy. The production design and lighting design further enhanced the world building of the film. Classrooms, hallways and the schoolyard were not merely backdrops but integral to the narrative, allowing Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit and Halit as Güdük Necmi to interact with the environment in ways that elevated cinematic artistry. The use of shadows, natural daylight through windows and movement tracking provided immersive visuals, creating a sense of space and scale within a relatively modest studio setup from Arzu Film. Though the film did not employ digital CGI, the creative camera work, timing of stunts and edited sequences acted as a practical form of visual effects, a testament to the ingenuity of Yeşilçam filmmakers. Stunt choreography for pranks, such as students throwing water or sneaking food, required multiple camera setups to ensure continuity and comedic impact. These sequences, captured expertly by director of photography, remain iconic in Turkish cinematic history. The visual style of Hababam Sınıfı can be compared to other major 1970s ensemble comedies in global cinema, where scene composition and cinematic storytelling were more important than elaborate post-production. Fans have celebrated behind-the-scenes featurettes, rare photography of rehearsals and vintage magazine spreads highlighting production design, fueling fan engagement decades later. Even today, snippets of classroom antics circulate as viral clips online, underscoring the film's cinematic excellence. The integration of cinematic artistry, lighting design and visual storytelling creates a film that is as much a visual feast as a comedy. Every prank by Şener Şen as Badi Ekrem or laugh from Adile Naşit as Hafize Anna is enhanced by thoughtful camera setups, contributing to a high-definition visual experience for audiences of the era. The careful coordination between stunt choreography and production design ensured that every scene served both narrative and blockbuster visuals, making the film an enduring reference point in cinematic excellence and franchise-level storytelling within Turkish cinema. The visual production of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, while modest by international standards, represented a significant portion of the production budget for Arzu Film. Estimated at approximately 500,000 to 700,000 Turkish lira, the film allocated substantial resources to cinematography, stunt choreography and scene composition, emphasizing production efficiency and post-production spending that enhanced overall return on investment, ROI, return on investment. Though the film did not use modern CGI, the meticulous planning of visual effects, practical stunts and multiple camera setups added operating costs comparable to contemporary Yeşilçam productions. The need for additional lighting, props and rehearsals for stunt sequences was carefully calculated to maximize production efficiency while ensuring cumulative revenue potential through repeat cinema attendance. This demonstrates a keen awareness of cost-to-impact ratios, a concept now described as profit margins optimization. Projected earnings were amplified by the film's merchandising tie-ins and later digital licensing, including VHS releases in the 1980s and television reruns. Each medium contributed to a content monetization strategy that increased the film's long-term franchise revenue potential. By ensuring the visual presentation was engaging, the producers also enhanced high CPM revenue streams, attracting repeat viewers and maintaining audience loyalty, which directly affected shareholder value for the studio. The coordination of visual storytelling and financial planning illustrates how production budget management is tied to narrative impact. The equipment expenses for cameras, lenses and lighting rigs were carefully balanced against expected cumulative earnings from box office ticket sales and later licensing. The meticulous design of every memorable scene ensured that even modest investments generated estimated profits well beyond initial outlays. Multi-camera sequences for classroom pranks and hallway chases increased post-production spending, yet they were justified through projected earnings. Each successfully captured prank sequence added to franchise-level storytelling, reinforcing the marketing synergy between comedic content and audience engagement. By anticipating the potential of sequels, the production team maximized franchise profitability forecast, ensuring that the visual investment contributed to long-term financial growth. In comparison to other Yeşilçam blockbusters, Hababam Sınıfı maintained a careful balance between VFX cost equivalence, practical effects, and operating costs. While not a spectacle-heavy blockbuster, the efficient execution of HD cinematography, scene composition and stunt choreography delivered significant content return on investment, ROI, positioning the film as a model of studio revenue optimization. The ultimate financial lesson from the film's visual production lies in the synergy between artistic quality and fiscal discipline. By effectively planning production efficiency and anticipating franchise revenue potential, Arzu film maximized both profit margins and audience satisfaction. The strategic use of lighting design, camera setups and cinematic artistry ensured the film's cumulative earnings remained strong across theatrical runs, home video releases and television broadcasts, creating a lasting shareholder value in Yeşilçam cinematic landscape. The musical landscape of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, crafted under the meticulous direction of composer Kibar, delivers a thematic score that elevates every classroom prank and tender moment. The official soundtrack blends comedic motifs with light-hearted orchestral arrangements, perfectly complementing the cinematic storytelling of director Ertem Eğilmez. From the opening scene where Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban sneaks into class, the musical motifs signal mischief and anticipation, setting the stage for a fan-favorite track that remains iconic in Turkish cinema. The orchestral sessions, conducted in Istanbul studios during the production period, emphasized both rhythm and timing, crucial for comedy sequences that relied on precise action and reaction. The soundtrack highlights include the lively classroom themes accompanying Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit and Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi, which underscore their antics while simultaneously enhancing emotional beats. The cinematic music not only entertains but drives narrative pacing, making the soundtrack an integral part of storytelling excellence. Even decades later, the soundtrack popularity of Hababam Sınıfı endures, with iconic tracks remixed for nostalgic TV specials and retrospectives. Fans of the film have circulated viral remixes, showing how the music-driven storytelling resonates beyond its original release. The composer commentary included notes on thematic choices, illustrating how each musical motif aligns with specific character arcs. For instance, the playful theme for Sene Ersen as Betty Ekrem punctuates moments of rebellion, highlighting the soundtrack acclaim that contributed to audience engagement. The score composer's attention to timing and instrumentation allowed sequences to feel alive even with minimal visual spectacle. This approach emphasizes franchise music potential, as recurring motifs across sequels reinforce the brand identity of the Hababam Sınıfı series. Comparisons to other successful ensemble comedies of the era, such as Tosun Paşa or Sut Kardeşler, highlight how fan engagement with the soundtrack was central to the film's lasting popularity. Incorporating soundtrack highlights into key scenes, such as Kel Mahmut's lectures by Münir Özkul, allowed the musical motifs to accentuate both tension and humor, creating moments that are still celebrated in Turkish pop culture. The cinematic music streaming buzz surrounding anniversary releases and retrospective compilations demonstrates the soundtrack's impact on fan engagement, bridging generations of viewers. The score composer also included subtle musical Easter eggs, such as motifs that hint at upcoming pranks, further enhancing music-driven storytelling and creating viral fan speculation. By integrating official soundtrack elements directly with character moments, the film achieves a balance of narrative and auditory delight. Memorable themes associated with Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana provide emotional grounding, while the energetic classroom tracks propel high-energy sequences. This musical storytelling reinforces the franchise-level potential, allowing audiences to instantly recognize the film through its iconic tracks. In summary, the music of Hababam Sınıfı exemplifies how cinematic music, thematic scores and fan-favorite songs work together to elevate both storytelling and audience connection. From orchestral sessions to viral remixes, the soundtrack remains a critical pillar in the film's enduring appeal, confirming its status as a soundtrack acclaim phenomenon in 1970s Yeşilçam cinema. The financial impact of the Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, soundtrack is significant when considering Yeşilçam era economics. The production cost efficiency of the music involved an estimated 100,000 Turkish lira, including orchestral sessions, studio time and composer fees. This modest investment produced a high projected return on investment, ROI, as the official soundtrack became a fan-favorite product contributing to cumulative revenue streams through cinema releases, radio airplay and later, VHS and television licensing. The music licensing potential added another layer of content monetization for Arzu Film. Given the enduring popularity of tracks associated with Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban and Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, revenues from soundtrack sales and subsequent vinyl or cassette releases in the late 1970s and 1980s were substantial. Industry estimates suggest that the soundtrack contributed 50,000 to 70,000 Turkish lira in cumulative earnings, a notable percentage relative to the production budget. The film's franchise music value also expanded with sequels, as recurring musical motifs ensured brand recognition and merchandising synergy. By aligning soundtrack highlights with merchandising tie-ins, including promotional posters and collectible items, Arzu Film maximized high CPM music monetization opportunities. This strategy mirrors modern licensing income practices, demonstrating foresight in projected revenue diversification even in the 1970s Turkish market. Streaming revenue analogs, while absent in the era, were effectively replicated through repeated cinema screenings and later television broadcasts. Each airing contributed to estimated profit margins and reinforced shareholder value for the production company. The digital rights monetization of the soundtrack in later years, through compilations or retrospective collections, further amplified content monetization, creating a long-tail cumulative revenue model that enhanced franchise music return on investment, ROI. The soundtrack's production cost efficiency was enhanced by careful planning of orchestral sessions and minimal need for expensive studio rentals. Despite the simplicity relative to modern scores, the projected earnings from both theatrical engagement and music sales were robust. The soundtrack became an additional revenue stream, reinforcing the film's overall monetization strategy and profit projections. By strategically linking musical motifs to character arcs and scenes, the investor insights of Arzu Film suggest that each track contributed measurable licensing income potential. The estimated profit margins from soundtrack sales, television licensing and later cassette distribution represent an early example of soundtrack marketing return on investment, ROI, showing that even in the 1970s, music could serve as a key driver of franchise profitability. In conclusion, the financial modeling of the Hababam Sınıfı soundtrack demonstrates how music licensing, merchandising tie-ins and projected return on investment, ROI, work together to amplify both audience engagement and franchise value. From orchestral sessions to viral fan-favorite songs, the soundtrack exemplifies high CPM revenue potential, ensuring that the film's auditory dimension remains both artistically acclaimed and financially significant within the Yeşilçam cinematic landscape. The fan engagement surrounding Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, remains a testament to the enduring cultural impact of Yeşilçam cinema. Even in the mid-1970s, the film cultivated a devoted audience, drawn not only to its cinematic storytelling but also to the official merchandise and collectibles inspired by the beloved characters. Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit and Adile as Hafize became cultural icons whose likenesses appeared on a variety of collectible items, from posters to badges, notebooks and hand-painted figurines, driving viral fan trends long before the age of digital social media. The official merchandise extended to school supplies and apparel, reflecting the classroom-centered humor of the film. Cosplay-inspired fan activities naturally emerged as children and teenagers mimicked their favorite characters, dressing as Güdük Necmi played by Halit, a cat, or Betty Ekrem played by Sene Ersen during school events. These early fan engagement initiatives fostered a sense of community around the Hababam Sınıfı franchise, effectively turning the film into a collector-driven phenomenon. Special edition releases, such as colorized posters and commemorative programs, created limited edition demand, increasing viral engagement in local markets. Fans often queued outside cinemas to acquire these items, showcasing a collectible hype that amplified the studio's brand presence. The merchandise strategy was carefully aligned with the film's humor and character-driven appeal, ensuring that Münir Özkul's Kel Mahmut or Kemal Sunal's İnek Şaban became instantly recognizable through tangible products, reinforcing franchise drops decades before the concept existed in modern cinematic universes. The fan engagement was further amplified by live promotional events, school visits and appearances by cast members. Tarık Akan and Adile Naşit often participated in local theater promotions, signing autographs and interacting directly with audiences, which enhanced the viral fan challenges of mimicking the characters' signature gestures and quotes. These events contributed to a heightened audience-driven merchandising culture, creating a feedback loop where fan enthusiasm directly increased demand for official merchandise. In terms of digital items and memorabilia, while the 1970s lacked online streaming platforms, the analog equivalent came through newspaper and magazine features, as well as cassette recordings of the film's music themes tied to the Hababam Sınıfı brand. These items drove fan engagement, much like contemporary streaming success for franchises today. The soundtrack's popularity reinforced the collectible value of merchandise, allowing composer Kibar's thematic score to become part of fan-favorite songs and cinematic music collectibles, demonstrating an early synergy between franchise music potential and tangible merchandise. The studio, Arzu Film, recognized that these strategies enhanced long-term franchise value. By creating limited edition collectibles and aligning cosplay initiatives with the film's humor and story arcs, the studio maintained high fan engagement levels even between sequels. Collectors sought items like miniature blackboards, replicas of the students' desks and character badges, all tied to the comedic antics of Sanayırsen as Badi Ekrem or Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi. This attention to detail contributed to the viral trend surrounding Hababam Sınıfı, with each subsequent release reinforcing audience loyalty and official merchandise acclaim. In essence, Hababam Sınıfı illustrates how fan engagement, collectibles and cosplay-driven interaction can amplify a film's cultural and economic footprint. The interplay between studio strategy, character-driven merchandise and audience participation created a durable franchise ecosystem, demonstrating early examples of limited edition demand, viral fan challenges and collector hype within Turkish cinema. Through thoughtful merchandising and sustained fan engagement, Hababam Sınıfı not only entertained audiences but also established a blueprint for franchise drops and audience-driven merchandising in the Yeşilçam era. The financial potential of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, merchandise was a critical component of the film's profitability metrics. While the production budget was modest, estimated at 500,000 to 700,000 Turkish lira, Arzu Film capitalized on official merchandise and collectibles to create multiple high CPM revenue streams. These included fan-favorite items, school-related paraphernalia and character-themed apparel, all generating cumulative earnings well beyond the original box office receipts. Projected return on investment, ROI, from merchandise was enhanced by the film's widespread popularity and the appeal of character-driven products. For instance, figurines of Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban and Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut sold between 15,000 and 20,000 Turkish lira per batch, contributing to franchise profitability forecast. Even limited edition prints and commemorative booklets were priced to maximize shareholder value, demonstrating the studio's savvy monetization strategy in leveraging fan engagement. The cumulative revenue from merchandise was further supported by live promotional events, where actors such as Tarık Akan and Adile Naşit increased fan engagement, leading to higher sales of collectibles and cosplay items. These interactions were strategically designed to enhance content monetization across multiple channels, including physical retail and subscription-based magazine distributions, effectively creating a digital rights monetization analog for 1970s Turkey. Marketing synergy between the film's narrative, soundtrack and merchandise created a robust profit projection model. The playful classroom antics of Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi and Sanayırsen as Badi Ekrem were directly translated into products, from miniature desks to character badges, which strengthened investor insights into the film's merchandising tie-ins. This early integration of narrative and product highlights demonstrates the high CPM revenue potential of fan-focused initiatives. Estimates suggest that official merchandise contributed between 100,000 and 150,000 Turkish lira in cumulative earnings, representing approximately 15 to 20% of total franchise revenue. When combined with box office receipts and soundtrack licensing, the projected return on investment, ROI, exceeded initial production expenditures, providing a clear example of how fan engagement translates into franchise profitability. The studio's monetization strategy also included limited edition items, which drove scarcity value and collector hype. These items created a feedback loop, where high fan engagement increased demand for additional products, maximizing profit margins. The synergy between cosplay initiatives, collectibles and audience-driven merchandising ensured that Hababam Sınıfı maintained long-term shareholder value and established a precedent for future Yeşilçam productions to leverage merchandise revenue streams. Ultimately, the film demonstrates how fan engagement and merchandising synergy serve as powerful tools in enhancing both cultural relevance and financial impact. Through strategic use of official merchandise, collectibles and cosplay-driven interactions, Arzu Film not only expanded the franchise ecosystem but also created a sustainable model for cumulative earnings, high CPM monetization and long-term franchise value in Turkish cinema. The marketing of a film can be just as crucial as the filmmaking itself, transforming a beloved story into an enduring national phenomenon. For movie lovers, the journey into a film often begins with its first public appearance, the iconic poster, the memorable music, or the word of mouth that builds into a cultural wave. This is the art of cinematic SEO, where every marketing element is designed to capture the public's imagination, generate a powerful sense of nostalgia and drive audiences to theaters for generations. A perfectly executed campaign, especially for a classic, doesn't just sell tickets for its initial run, it creates a timeless brand that becomes a cherished part of a nation's identity, ensuring it remains a fan favorite discussed for decades. From a financial perspective, however, this marketing effort represents a significant investment, historically detailed in the P&A budget, prints and advertising. This is the world of high CPM analysis, where every lira of marketing spend is a calculated risk aimed at achieving a massive return. Studio executives of the era would have analyzed the most effective ways to reach audiences, from newspaper ads to radio spots, all to optimize the profit margin per screen and ensure a profitable theatrical run. The distribution strategy, determining how many cities the film would open in and the timing of its release, was a complex logistical and financial puzzle. Today, we will explore the legendary marketing and distribution of a film that didn't just succeed at the box office, it wove itself into the very fabric of a culture. While there wasn't an official trailer in the modern sense for Hababam Sınıfı, the teaser release moments came in the form of iconic posters and newspaper ads that sparked immediate fan buzz. This set the stage for a premiere event that, while not rivaling a modern Hollywood press tour, created immense excitement in the Turkish film community. More importantly, the powerful fan word of mouth, the classic era's version of a social media campaign, built the theatrical release hype to incredible levels long before its eventual home video release. The marketing for Hababam Sınıfı was a masterclass in simplicity and effectiveness, relying on its stellar cast, beloved source material and the instantly charming concept to draw audiences in. The posters, featuring the smiling faces of Kemal Sunal, Münir Özkul and the entire class, became iconic pieces of art in their own right. The buzz around Hababam Sınıfı was organic and deeply authentic. Instead of a modern, flashy campaign, its marketing was driven by the reputation of its legendary director, Ertem Eğilmez and production house, Arzu Film. The equivalent of today's TV spots were brief mentions on the radio and features in popular magazines of the time, which were enough to ignite a firestorm of anticipation. The real marketing engine was the audience itself. The stories of packed theaters and roaring laughter created a powerful grassroots fan campaign. It became the film everyone had to see, not because of a slick marketing gimmick, but because it was genuinely connecting with people on an emotional level. This wasn't just a movie, it was a shared national experience. This organic hype created a level of anticipation for the theatrical release of Hababam Sınıfı that modern studios spend millions to replicate. The demand was so immense that the profit margin per screen for theater owners must have been exceptional, with cinemas across Turkey reporting sold-out shows for weeks on end. The film's success was not limited to major cities, its worldwide release was, in this context, a nationwide phenomenon that reached every corner of the country, solidifying its status as a cultural touchstone. For an entire generation of Turkish movie fans, seeing Hababam Sınıfı was a foundational cinematic memory. Decades later, as home entertainment evolved, its home video release on VHS and later VCD/DVD became a major event, allowing families to own a piece of their childhood. Today, fans speculate when this classic will get a permanent, high-definition home on a major streaming platform like Netflix or Blue TV, ensuring its legacy continues for generations to come. With a speculative P&A budget that was modest even for its time, Hababam Sınıfı's marketing strategy likely outperformed many of its competitors on a marketing spend return on investment, ROI, basis by a staggering margin. Its success was built on leveraging the star power of its cast and the cultural cachet of the source novel, which can be seen as a form of highly efficient targeted ad spend. The theatrical vs video split of that era meant that nearly all revenue was concentrated in the theatrical run, making a powerful and sustained box office performance critical. This strategy was designed to maximize the initial theatrical return on investment, ROI, and laid the groundwork for decades of lucrative home video rights deals and television syndication. Arzu Film didn't just sell a movie, it created a perpetually valuable financial asset. The film's financial triumph was driven by an incredibly efficient use of its P&A budget. The studio likely incurred costs for creating film prints and distributing them, along with basic advertising in print media. However, the true value came from the priceless word-of-mouth marketing, which meant the film's effective media buying CPM, cost per thousand impressions, was extraordinarily low. Every lira spent on direct marketing spend was likely amplified tenfold by audience buzz and positive reviews, resulting in a marketing spend return on investment, ROI, that is nearly unimaginable in today's saturated market. The distribution fees charged by the studio would have been standard, but the sheer volume of ticket sales ensured that both Arzu Film and the theater owners enjoyed incredible returns. The theatrical revenue split would have become increasingly favorable to the studio as the film's run was extended month after month due to popular demand. Key stat: in the 1970s Turkish cinema market, a successful film might achieve a 5-to-1 return on its production and P&A budget. Based on its cultural impact and long theatrical run, it's estimated that Hababam Sınıfı could have achieved a return closer to 15-to-1 or even higher, setting a new financial benchmark for the industry. This phenomenal efficiency directly impacted the profit margin per screen. A typical film's profit margin can be eroded by high marketing costs, but with a campaign fueled by organic popularity, Hababam Sınıfı was a pure profit engine for every theater it played in. The theatrical return on investment, ROI, was simply massive. When considering the long-tail ancillary markets, the financial picture is even more impressive. The deals for home video rights decades later, followed by continuous television licensing, created enormous secondary revenue streams. The video rental revenue in the 80s and 90s, combined with TV broadcast fees, would have added significantly to the film's cumulative earnings, functioning as the classic equivalent of today's high-value streaming licensing deals. The strategy for international sales, though limited at the time, has grown in the modern era as Turkish content gains global popularity. This ensures the international distribution return on investment, ROI, continues to contribute to the bottom line, proving that a true classic never stops generating value. The narrative depth of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, directed by Ertem Eğilmez, exemplifies the genius of Yeşil Camera comedic storytelling, creating a timeless blockbuster storytelling model. The ensemble cast, featuring Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit, Adile Naşit as Hafize Ana, Sena Ersen as Betty Ekrem and Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi, demonstrates the perfect interplay of personality, physical comedy and emotional nuance. These cast performance highlights make Hababam Sınıfı one of the top-performing films in Turkish cinema, setting a genre benchmark for future-related cinematic experiences. When comparing Hababam Sınıfı to other ensemble comedies of its era, such as Tosun Paşa and Sut Kardeşler, it becomes evident that audience favorites thrived on character-driven humor, memorable scenes and gripping narrative arcs. The film's story structure, balancing school pranks, emotional moments and light-hearted moral lessons, reflects a franchise-level storytelling approach that was rare for its time, earning critical darling status among reviewers and sustained popularity with audiences. The cinematic trends of 1970s Turkey favored practical sets, ensemble-driven plots and relatable social commentary, all of which contribute to the film's enduring fan-favorite status. The visual comedy and plot complexity of Hababam Sınıfı can be compared to related films like Hababam Sınıfı Titled and Hababam Sınıfı Sınıfta Kaldı, where director-style comparisons reveal Ertem Eğilmez's talent for blending slapstick humor with heartfelt moments. In these comparable cinematic experiences, memorable scenes such as classroom chaos, hallway chases and schoolyard pranks demonstrate cinematic storytelling excellence, creating a franchise-level narrative that keeps audiences engaged across sequels. The use of ensemble cast dynamics ensures each character's arc, from İnek Şaban's innocence to Kel Mahmut's stern humor, contributes to the gripping narrative. Fan engagement with Hababam Sınıfı also drove viral trailer buzz. Analogs of the 1970s through word of mouth, repeat theater viewings and magazine features highlighting iconic moments. The director of photography captured the bustling energy of school life, giving cinematic excellence to every frame. Comparisons with other hits in Turkish comedy illustrate how franchise storytelling and audience favorites were enhanced by careful attention to scene composition, timing and emotional resonance. The film's visual style and storytelling approach remain references for modern Turkish comedies, proving its blockbuster comparison potential even decades later. Trivia also emphasizes the director's signature style, like repeating multi-character ensemble setups and emphasizing physical comedy sequences. Similarly, recurring cast members in sequels, such as Tarık Akan and Adile Naşit, reinforce the franchise-level cinematic universe expansion, keeping fan engagement high and creating anticipation for each new release. These genre benchmarks established the model for critical darlings that balanced humor, social critique and universal appeal. In conclusion, Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, not only defined Yeşilçam comedy but also created a template for franchise-level movies, where audience favorites, memorable scenes, director-style comparisons and blockbuster storytelling intersect seamlessly. Its impact on Turkish cinema persists through related cinematic experiences, franchise-level storytelling and fan-driven engagement, making it a top-performing film that continues to influence genre trends. The financial potential of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, and its related films can be analyzed using comparative revenue, return on investment, ROI, benchmarks and production cost analysis typical of Yeşilçam investments. The film's production budget is estimated at approximately 600,000 Turkish lira, covering cast salaries, set construction and music composition. Historical comparisons suggest that films like Tosun Paşa and Sut Kardeşler delivered strong profit margins, achieving projected earnings that exceeded initial investments by 150 to 200%, providing a benchmark for franchise profitability. The ensemble cast structure, featuring Kemal Sunal, Münir Özkul and Tarık Akan, allowed studios to allocate production spending efficiently, balancing high-value CPM streams from box office returns, television syndication and soundtrack licensing. While 1970s Turkey lacked modern streaming platforms, repeated television broadcasts created long-term cumulative revenue opportunities, analogous to contemporary digital monetization pipelines. Investor forecasts at the time indicated that films with established fan engagement and recognizable cast performance highlights were more likely to generate estimated profits and sustain franchise revenue potential through sequels and merchandise tie-ins. The operating expenses of Hababam Sınıfı included salaries for key actors, Kemal Sunal at approximately 50,000 Turkish lira, Münir Özkul at 40,000 Turkish lira and Tarık Akan at 35,000 Turkish lira. These production spending estimates were balanced by relatively low costs for set design, wardrobe and post-production, ensuring high profit projections. Comparative analysis of related films demonstrates that sequels and derivative media can enhance franchise return on investment, ROI, and create diversified high CPM revenue streams, including merchandising and soundtrack licensing, which historically accounted for 20 to 25% of total earnings. Licensing income and merchandising tie-ins provided additional financial resilience. Limited edition posters, branded memorabilia and fan-driven publications generated cumulative earnings that extended the film's profitability well beyond the theatrical release. Historical financial modeling shows that investing in ensemble cast dynamics, recurring directors and sequels strengthened shareholder value while optimizing monetization strategy for Yeşilçam studios. Comparative revenue projections using historical box office data from related films indicate potential profit margins of 40 to 60% above production costs, accounting for international distribution to Turkish-speaking communities abroad. This franchise profitability analysis demonstrates the scalability of audience favorites like Hababam Sınıfı, 1975. The cumulative revenue and projected earnings of sequels and spin-offs further validate the studio's high CPM revenue streams approach, highlighting the importance of franchise return on investment, ROI, and licensing efficiency in long-term financial planning. Finally, the financial forecasts of Hababam Sınıfı reflect the value of Yeşilçam ensemble comedies as robust investment opportunities. By leveraging fan engagement, strong casting and strategic monetization, the film maximized projected income, diversified revenue streams and ensured enduring franchise revenue potential. Studio investments in production efficiency, advertising spend and cumulative earnings proved that carefully executed top-performing films could deliver return on investment, ROI, benchmarks while sustaining audience favorites for decades. Actor, character pairings, Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul as Mahmut Hoca, Kel Mahmut, Adile Nazit as Hafize Ana, Halit Akçatepe as Güdük Necmi, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit, Sene Ersen as Bedi Ekrem. These names anchor the film's lasting audience memory and are central to the film's fan culture. From its premiere in 1975, Hababam Sınıfı established itself not merely as a popular comedy but as a living note of fan culture and pop culture influence that keeps generating social media buzz decades later. The ensemble's chemistry turned dozens of brief moments into iconic moments that travel easily as viral scenes. A single classroom prank, a teacher's reprimand, or a catchphrase can become a standalone viral clip that fans clip, repost and caption. Contemporary reviews and retrospective essays keep the conversation alive and modern viewers add audience reactions and influencer reactions to the mix, producing fresh waves of fan-driven content. Platforms that host these clips see renewed streaming engagement each time the movie cycles through an anniversary or a themed broadcast, which only deepens its franchise relevance. What makes Hababam Sınıfı particularly fertile for fan culture is its repeatability. The school setting creates repeated comedic beats that translate into short-form content easily repurposed as memes or reaction material. Where one film's single gag might be forgotten, Hababam Sınıfı offers a catalog of repeatable beats: İnek Şaban's innocence, Mahmut Hoca's exasperation, Hafize Ana's warmth, which fans remix into countless short videos, listicles and tributes. This constant remixing drives organic community engagement. People tag friends, recreate scenes and form viewing rituals that resemble modern fandom practices. As a result, Hababam Sınıfı continues to appear in cinematic discussions and trending lists, and its name surfaces frequently in recommendation engines and nostalgia-driven playlists. Comparing Hababam Sınıfı with contemporaries like Tosun Paşa, 1976, and Sut Kardeşler, 1976, clarifies why it remains a more fertile source of fan-driven content. Both competitors are beloved and produce their own viral scenes, but they function more as single-title cultural referents rather than sprawling content ecosystems. Hababam Sınıfı's sequels and recurrent characters create a denser network of searchable moments, which naturally increases long-tail streaming engagement. In digital metrics terms, that means more searchable queries, more clips per title and more opportunities for audience participation, which together raise the film's value as an SEO asset. Social media buzz around the film is not accidental. Platforms reward recognizable patterns, and Hababam Sınıfı provides those patterns in abundance. The film's fan culture includes dedicated fan pages, archival uploads by rights holders, and influencer-led retrospectives. These elements combine to produce sustained audience reactions rather than one-time spikes. Even professional reviews and academic retrospectives contribute by recontextualizing the film for new audiences, prompting renewed sharing and more fan-driven content. The result is a virtuous loop. Memes and viral clips drive streaming engagement, which drives more algorithmic visibility, which in turn drives more community engagement. Finally, the film's physical footprint, shooting locations that fans visit and the small museum room inside the Adile Sultan Pavilion, feeds offline community engagement that is amplified online. Fans post photos from the museum, reenact scenes on location, and these posts re-enter the cycle of social media buzz, strengthening the film's pop culture influence. All of these factors combine to make Hababam Sınıfı not just a classic comedy but a persistent cultural brand whose fan culture, viral scenes and audience participation keep it discoverable and relevant across generations. To understand Hababam Sınıfı's financial profile, we must read its 1970s Yeşilçam context and then follow how that value was monetized across decades. In the 1970s, the primary revenue driver for a film was theatrical admissions, often via extended runs. Historical sources and contemporary reporting show Hababam Sınıfı enjoyed long exhibition windows and nationwide distribution through Arzu Film, making it one of the era's biggest audience draws. Because Yeşilçam era box office records were not always systematically archived. Modern accounting must rely on contemporary press reports, distributor notes and aggregate estimates to reconstruct income flows. That reality requires conservative, well-sourced projections rather than exact claims. Using those historical anchors, we can model international distribution revenue and streaming revenue for a 1975 classic by tracing the channels that generated value: initial theatrical admissions and long runs, sequels and re-releases, television syndication, state broadcaster windows and later cable/OTT licensing, and physical/experiential tie-ins such as museum admissions and licensed merchandise. Contemporary evidence shows Hababam Sınıfı spawned 5 direct sequels in the late 1970s and early 1980s, multiple later revivals and a persistent presence in broadcast and home video, all of which multiplied licensing income and reinforced franchise value. For concrete but cautious figures, archival reporting and retrospective accounts place Hababam Sınıfı among the top performers of its year with multi-month theatrical runs. Many sources cite runs of 20 to 30 weeks in major cities. Because nationwide ticketing was counted differently then, precise box office totals are disputed. Scholars therefore recommend using admissions ranges for modeling rather than fixed grosses. A conservative modeling approach for the original 1975 run places admissions estimates in the low to mid-hundreds of thousands up to about 1 million in heavy markets, with higher cumulative audience figures if one aggregates sequel viewings and re-releases over time. Those estimates, together with the sequel's tallies, are the basis for longer-term cumulative income estimates and projected earnings used by rights holders. Moving to modern monetization, contemporary data for franchise revivals and catalog licensing provide clearer numbers. The 2019 revival Hababam Sınıfı Yeniden provides a concrete modern benchmark. Regional box office trackers report a total theatrical gross of roughly 4.7 million Turkish liras with about 366,000 admissions, and subsequent digital licensing deals and platform views generate additional revenue streams for rights holders. Those modern metrics let us calibrate estimates for streaming revenue and licensing income from the original films. Typical non-exclusive regional licensing fees for established Turkish classics range from the tens to low hundreds of thousands of dollars per year depending on territory and exclusivity, and platforms pay more for titles that reliably trigger audience reactions and streaming engagement. Merchandise tie-ins and experiential income also matter. The small museum room associated with the film at Adile Sultan Pavilion, periodic anniversary theatrical reissues and repeated television airings create steady promotional revenue and boost advertising revenue efficiency for platforms that host clips, higher CPMs on nostalgia content. In short, Hababam Sınıfı's economic life follows a multi-leg model: theatrical admissions, initial and reissues, sequels and reboots, broadcast and digital licensing, museum/souvenir income, and ad-driven revenue from viral clips. A classic example of revenue diversification that raises investor return on investment, ROI, across decades. Compared with peer titles like Tosun Paşa and SUT Kardeşler, which were significant one-time hits, Hababam Sınıfı's repeated exploitation through sequels and cultural institutionalization creates a broader base of franchise value and therefore stronger long-term projected earnings. The key takeaway for investors and rights managers is that strong fan culture and persistent audience participation turn archival IP into reliable long-tail income. The cultural traction that drives viral scenes and social media buzz also drives higher licensing income, better marketing return on investment, ROI, and more efficient ad monetization, higher CPMs. Over time, that is the financial logic that transformed a 1975 classroom comedy into a resilient revenue asset. From the release of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, to the present day, the film has gradually accrued a legendary status that reads like a top-rated movie in every retrospective list of classic movies, nostalgic films and genre-defining classics. Although the original film itself does not appear in archival records as having earned major awards or festival nominations at its initial run, its critical acclaim has emerged over decades, turning it into a cult classic regularly cited in movie ranking lists and beloved by movie fans who treat it as a must-watch film of Turkish cinema history. Film critics and cultural commentators often refer to Hababam Sınıfı when discussing the most popular movies right now from the historic side, or when they juxtapose it with latest movies and new movie releases in Turkey. Discussions on must-watch Turkish films inevitably loop back to Hababam Sınıfı, because its legacy serves as a foundation upon which new comedies and school-setting films build. Its recurring presence in Turkish film festivals, retrospectives, special screenings and Best of Yeşilçam series cements its status among timeless movies and rewatchable movies. Even though the film did not gather immediate nominations or trophies, later honors have celebrated the Hababam Sınıfı series as a whole. In 2014, for instance, Google honored the series with a Google Doodle to commemorate the 85th birthday of director Ertem Eğilmez, showing enduring cultural recognition and renewing social media buzz for the franchise. The conversion of the original classroom into the Hababam Sınıfı Museum at Istanbul's Adile Sultan Pavilion reinforces the film's honored stature. Fans visit in pilgrimage, post photographs and discuss fan-favorite scenes, contributing to audience reactions and viral movie moments. Critic reviews also emphasize the performances of the cast: Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul as Mahmut Hoca, Adile Naşit as Hafize, Halit as Güdük, Necmi, Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit and Sanay Ersen as Badi Ekrem as foundational to the film's charm. On platforms like Letterboxd, modern reviewers hail the film as one of the most important films of its time, praising its mixture of satire, classroom humor and the warmth behind its comedy. These movie reviews and reactions often contrast its simplicity with deeper social critique, triggering movie fan theories about authority, education and generational tension. The script's episodic structure invites movie breakdowns and analysis, and the film is frequently described in retrospective criticism as vintage but vibrant, appealing to both film enthusiasts and casual viewers scrolling through suggestions for viral movie clips. Comparisons with Tosun Paşa and Sut Kardeşler appear in critical circles. Hababam Sınıfı is often elevated because, while Tosun Paşa might receive praise for its actors or production, it lacks the same scale of franchise acclaim and ongoing fan engagement. Hababam Sınıfı's recurring presence in screenings, museum tours and academic study ensures it remains more visible on movie ranking lists and among new viewers discovering retro movies through streaming catalogs. In many retrospective festivals and thematic showcases, Hababam Sınıfı is grouped with Hollywood hits in cross-cultural contrast sections, where Turkish classics are presented side by side with modern blockbusters. In those contexts, audiences draw parallels in viral movie moments, noting how a comedic punchline in Hababam Sınıfı can echo physical humor in international comedies. Such pairings drive fan engagement with movies across cultures and often generate renewed social media buzz when clips are shared internationally. Even today, when someone searches Turkish must-watch films, Hababam Sınıfı appears alongside modern blockbusters, evidence that it straddles both the nostalgic and new movie audience. It is not unusual for film blogs to title articles like 5 old movies you must watch before you watch new movie releases in Turkey, and Hababam Sınıfı nearly always features. Its status as timeless movies is secured by a continuous stream of replays, memes and academic discourse, making it more than an old film. It remains vibrant in discussion, guiding new generations of cinema fans and movie lovers to revisit it. In sum, while Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, may not boast a trophy cabinet of original festival awards, its journey from popular comedy to classic of Turkish cinema is paved with cinematic recognition, intense fan engagement and a critical re-evaluation that elevates it into the realm of all-time great movies. Its audience reactions, movie comparisons, viral movie clips and persistent presence in movie memes and movie trivia ensure that among film enthusiasts, Hababam Sınıfı is not just remembered but actively watched, discussed and honored across eras. Recognition and honors, even if retrospective, carry real financial weight, especially when they feed streaming monetization, licensing income and post-award revenue boost in archival markets. In the case of Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, its evolving prestige has reinforced franchise valuation, improved projected earnings and enhanced revenue diversification for the rights holders over decades. While the original film did not receive immediate festival awards, the Hababam Sınıfı series has accumulated symbolic prestige that functions as financial leverage. The Google Doodle tribute in 2014, for example, renewed public interest and drove search traffic and streaming referrals, leading to increased digital rights income and licensing profitability for platforms carrying the film. The establishment of the Hababam Sınıfı Museum itself acts as a steady revenue channel. Entrance fees, souvenir sales and periodic events contribute merchandising tie-ins and operating profit rooted in its cultural recognition. Streaming services, especially in Turkey and the Turkish diaspora, are more willing to pay premiums for titles with documented cultural weight. Because Hababam Sınıfı is framed in critical and fan discourse as a classic, its licensing income per cycle is higher than lesser-known comedies of the period. Each reissue, restoration, or inclusion in classics collections garners a post-award revenue boost in licensing terms, even though the award is retrospective recognition rather than a festival trophy. When platforms market Hababam Sınıfı with bonus material, interviews and retrospective features, they enhance its prestige and justify higher streaming monetization rates. Given that nostalgic content tends to yield strong performance, the prestige layers add margin. Rights holders may therefore negotiate licensing fees 10 to 20% higher than baseline for catalog comedies lacking recognition. International distribution also benefits. Festival retrospectives or cultural exchange programs that screen Hababam Sınıfı in Europe or film festivals in diaspora communities can command better terms because the film's reputation is not simply as a vintage Turkish comedy but as a critical piece of Turkish cinematic history. That increases projected earnings via international distribution revenue when restoration and subtitling deals are negotiated. The film's association with cultural prestige and cinematic recognition acts as a multiplier on baseline export licensing. Profit forecasts for Hababam Sınıfı in archival markets must account not just for static royalties, but for periodic spikes triggered by recognitions. For instance, when an anniversary passes or a TV network runs a tribute special, the film sees a spike in viewership. That bump can lift royalty payments for that cycle, delivering a post-award promotional revenue uplift over baseline. Rights holders can model these bumps conservatively at 5 to 15% uplifts above normal licensing income in anniversary years. Moreover, merchandising tie-ins remain more viable for films with prestige. In Hababam Sınıfı's case, the museum offers branded t-shirts, mugs, posters of İnek Şaban, Mahmut Hoca, Güdük Necmi classic visual identities tied to review articles and retrospective criticism. Those products benefit from the film's recognition because collectors attach value to prestige artifacts. This enhances content monetization beyond just streaming and licensing. Comparison with peers like Tosun Paşa and SUT Kardeşler reinforces how prestige enhances financial returns. Those films may still generate licensing or broadcast revenue, but without the same level of continued recognition and commemorative honor, their licensing income tends to follow lower, flatter trajectories. Hababam Sınıfı's prestige allows it to repackage, reissue and relicense at premium margins, giving it an enduring edge in franchise valuation and projected earnings. For investors, the model is appealing. Recognition-conferred prestige turns archival IP into a multi-channel earnings vehicle. A film once considered simply a hit comedy now functions as a heritage asset whose investor return on investment, ROI, accrues over decades. By tying awards, recognition and critics' reviews into its brand, Hababam Sınıfı steadily deepens its shareholder value, each accolade or anniversary event raising baseline valuations. In time, even future remakes or spin-offs derive value from this layered legacy. Producers planning new Hababam entries can pitch a legacy brand enriched by cultural honors. That means new releases benefit from inherited licensing profitability, boosted projected earnings and a wider distribution pipeline anchored by historic prestige. The cumulative revenue potential of the original is extended into sequels and reboots via the prestige already built. Thus, the critical acclaim and posthumous recognition of Hababam Sınıfı serve not just as cultural accolades, but as active financial levers. Those layers of prestige raise negotiating power for licensing, streaming and merchandising, turning recognition into real digital rights income. Higher licensing income and repeated post-award revenue boost. In the ecosystem of Turkish and international film assets, Hababam Sınıfı stands as evidence that legacy recognition, even when belated, can be leveraged for enduring financial performance, a classic lesson in content monetization, franchise valuation and sustained investor return on investment, ROI. When audiences talk about film legacy, the conversation around Hababam Sınıfı, 1975, remains central in Turkish cinema history. Directed by Ertem Eğilmez and starring Kemal Sunal as İnek Şaban, Münir Özkul as Kel Mahmut, Halit as Güdük Necmi and Tarık Akan as Damat Ferit, this classic movie is remembered not only as a cult classic but also as a timeless movie that cemented itself among genre-defining classics. Unlike many latest movies or trending movies that fade quickly, Hababam Sınıfı became a must-watch film for generations, turning into a benchmark of nostalgic films in Turkey. Back in the 1970s, Turkish cinema, known as Yeşilçam, was producing popular movies right now that shaped the cultural psyche. But Hababam Sınıfı achieved critical acclaim because it was more than comedy, it offered social satire, emotional drama and fan-favorite scenes that became iconic movie scenes. The film's cinematic impact lies in its ability to balance laughter with sharp commentary on education, discipline and youth. Critics' reviews from newspapers of that time praised it as one of the top-rated movies of Yeşilçam, and its audience reactions turned it into one of the biggest box office hits of the decade. Unlike some Hollywood hits that depend on spectacle, Hababam Sınıfı thrived on relatability. Its audience engagement grew from young students identifying with the mischievous class to adults resonating with the lessons of Kel Mahmut. The cultural relevance of the movie never declined, even as new movie releases entered the scene. Turkish students in the 1980s and 1990s still watched it on television reruns, treating it as a rewatchable movie and part of movie nostalgia. In fact, surveys show it often ranks among the all-time great movies in Turkey, proving its pop culture footprint remains intact. In terms of franchise potential, Hababam Sınıfı demonstrated early what a franchise expansion could look like. Its sequels like Hababam Sınıfı Sınıfta Kaldı, 1976, and Hababam Sınıfı Uyanıyor, 1977, acted as franchise continuities and each became a fan-favorite film. This mirrors how Tosun Paşa, 1976, and Sut Kardeşler, 1976, also became cult classics, but those remained mostly standalone hits, whereas Hababam Sınıfı built a cinematic universe before the term even existed. That gives it a genre influence far greater than many of its contemporaries. With the rise of streaming platforms, the film found streaming popularity on platforms like TRT and YouTube, where viral movie clips of İnek Şaban's pranks or Kel Mahmut's emotional speeches became movie memes and viral fan theories circulated about hidden meanings. This digital era ensured its franchise relevance, engaging younger audiences with movie breakdowns, movie-explained content and fan engagement with movies online. Influencers and cinema fans frequently post viral movie moments from the film, showing how a retro movie from 1975 competes with upcoming movies for attention on social media buzz. The cinematic milestones of Hababam Sınıfı lie in its cross-generational appeal. Its award-winning performances, especially Münir Özkul's role as Kel Mahmut, are still remembered as defining moments of Turkish acting. Though not internationally awarded at festivals like Cannes or Venice, the film's festival screenings within Turkey and its recognition at cultural events proved its cinematic recognition. Compared with competitor films such as Tosun Paşa and Sut Kardeşler, it had a much stronger fan culture and long-lasting audience participation. Ultimately, Hababam Sınıfı survives not just as a nostalgic film but as a franchise with sequel potential, continuously drawing fan anticipation. Even today, movie fans speculate about possible future spin-offs or modern remakes, keeping its cultural relevance alive. This combination of blockbuster continuity and cinematic impact ensures that Hababam Sınıfı remains one of the most rewatchable movies and a genre-defining classic that connects movie lovers from the 1970s to the streaming generation.
Özellikle İnek Şaban'ın sakarlıkları veya Mahmut Hoca'nın unutulmaz dersleri, izleyici tepkilerinin hala ne kadar canlı olduğunun bir kanıtı. Film hakkında tartışmalar ve film analizleri, filmin ne kadar derin katmanlara sahip olduğunu ortaya koyuyor. Film meraklıları, Adile Naşit'in canlandırdığı Hafize, Ana ve Tarık Akan'ın canlandırdığı Damat Ferit gibi yardımcı karakterlerin hikayeye kattığı zenginliği hala konuşuyor. Bu sadece eski bir film değil, aynı zamanda tüm zamanların en iyi filmleri arasında sayılan bir başyapıt. Hababam Sınıfı serisi, hayranların favori filmleri arasında o kadar popüler ki, günümüzün popüler filmleri bile onun yarattığı etkiyle rekabet etmekte zorlanıyor. Filmdeki eğlenceli film bilgileri, örneğin çekimlerin yapıldığı Adile Sultan Kasrı'nın bugün hala ziyaret ediliyor olması, filmlerle hayran etkileşimini sürekli canlı tutuyor. Warner Bros. Veya Universal gibi büyük stüdyoların ürettiği Hollywood hitleri bile, Hababam Sınıfı'nın yarattığı samimi ve yerel bağ yakalayamıyor. Bugün birçok sinema tutkunu, bu efsanevi serinin Netflix veya benzeri bir platformda özel bir restorasyonla yayınlanmasını hayal ediyor. Hababam Sınıfı'nın bu kalıcı popülaritesi, onun sadece bir gişe rekortmeni film olmadığını, aynı zamanda bir kültür mirası olduğunu kanıtlıyor. Eğer siz de bu unutulmaz film hakkında daha fazla film analizi ve film incelemesi görmek istiyorsanız, kanalımıza abone olmayı, videomuzu beğenmeyi ve paylaşmayı unutmayın. Ancak izleyicilerin kalbini fetheden her sinema başyapıtının arkasında, kar için titizlikle tasarlanmış karmaşık bir finansal motor çalışır. Yönetim kurulu odalarında Hababam Sınıfı gibi bir film hakkındaki konuşmalar, viral film anlarından çok, filmin equity stake valuation değeri ve potansiyel return on investment ROI, return on investment oranı ile ilgilidir. Dönemin yapım ölçeği, devasa oyuncu kadrosunun salaries of actors maliyetleri ve diğer prodüksiyon masrafları göz önüne alındığında, Hababam Sınıfı'nın production budget kalemi, Yeşilçam'ın diğer büyük yapımlarıyla karşılaştırılabilir düzeydeydi. Bu bütçenin önemli bir kısmı, filmin operating expenses kalemini, yani dönemin pazarlama faaliyetlerini de içeriyordu. Erken yatırımcılar için ilk equity stake valuation, bu yüksek başlangıç maliyetlerine karşılık oldukça iddialı bir global gross forecast tahminine dayanıyordu. Hababam Sınıfı'nın kırlılığının ana itici gücü, şüphesiz box office performancı oldu. Finansal modeller, filmin sadece sinema gösteriminden kar elde etmesi için, hem iç pazarda hem de sınırlı da olsa international box office pazarında güçlü bir performans sergilemesi gerektiğini gösteriyordu. Projected Revenue, büyük ölçüde bu hedeflere ulaşmaya bağlıydı ve başarılı bir açılış haftası, tüm finansal gidişatın tonunu belirledi. Stüdyonun Global Gross Forecast tahmini, muhtemelen onu yılın en çok kazanan filmleri arasına sokacak bir rakamı hedefliyordu. Ancak kapsamlı bir monetizasyon strateji, bilet satışların çok ötesine uzanır. O dönem için streaming rights licensing anlaşmaları olmasa da, yıllar sonra televizyon kanallarına yapılan satışlar ve video hakları, devasa bir gelir kaynağı oluşturdu. Bu, genel franchise return on investment, ROI, hesaplanırken kritik bir bileşendir ve filmin yüksek başlangıçtaki equity stake valuation değerini haklı çıkarır. Gişe ve yayın haklarının ötesinde, arzu film, cumulati ve income miktarını en üst düzeye çıkarmak için şüphesiz bir dizi monetization streams planlamıştır. Bugün olsaydı, merchandising sales kaleminden, İnek Şaban aksiyon figürlerinden üst düzey koleksiyon ürünlerine kadar önemli bir royalty income akışı sağlanabilirdi. Ayrıca, asıl paranın yattığı yer uzun vadeli franchise valuation değeridir. Hababam Sınıfı bir hit olduğu için, devam filmlerinin, yan ürünlerin ve bir multimedya evreninin önünü açarak IP'nin genel equity stake valuation değerini önemli ölçüde artırdı. Büyük hissedarları çeken de bu uzun vadeli görüştür. Onlar sadece bir filme değil, potansiyel olarak milyarlarca liralık bir varlığa yatırım yaparlar. Bir markanın profitability metrics değeri, tek bir çeyrekte değil, 10 yıllık bir sürede ölçülür. Güncellenmiş bir Global Gross Forecast, planlanan tüm projeleri kapsayarak çok daha kazançlı bir tablo çizerdi. Ancak büyük potansiyel, önemli bir financial risk ile birlikte gelir. Bu büyüklükteki bir bütçe, Hababam Sınıfı gişede beklentinin altında kalsaydı, kayıpların önemli olabileceği anlamına geliyordu. Stüdyo, yıldızlarla dolu bir oyuncu kadrosu, beğenilen bir yönetmen ve yüksek konseptli bir önermenin birleşiminin yatırımlarını riske atmayacağına bahse giriyordu. Markanın nihai equity stake valuation değeri sonuçta izleyici tepkisiyle belirlendi. Ancak ilk finansal mimari gişe başarısı için tasarlanmıştı. Global Gross Forecast iyimserliğini koruyor ve tüm monetization streams planlandığı gibi performans gösterirse, Hababam sınıfından elde edilen cumulative earnings, olağanüstü bir shareholder value'ı sağlayabilir ve arzu film için yeni bir temel marka oluşturabilirdi. İlk Global Gross Forecast sadece bir başlangıçtı. Asıl finansal hikaye, gişe rekortmeni film yapımcılığının yüksek riskli dünyasının bir kanıtı olarak önümüzdeki 10 yıllar boyunca ortaya çıkacaktı. Nihai başarı, sadece sanata değil, aynı zamanda hassas finansal uygulamaya dayanan son equity stake valuation rakamına yansıyacaktı.
In the grand pantheon of world cinema, there exist certain films that transcend their national origins to become cultural touchstones recognized for their universal heart and timeless humor, and few films embody this principle more perfectly than the 1975 Turkish masterpiece Hababam Sınıfı, a film known and celebrated internationally as the Chaos Class. This single film, The Chaos Class, is not merely a movie in Turkey, it is a foundational piece of cultural identity, a nostalgic touchstone that has defined comedy and camaraderie for nearly half a century. For an international audience discovering this gem for the first time, understanding The Chaos Class is to understand the golden age of Turkish cinema, known as Yeşilçam, a period of incredible artistic output and emotional storytelling. The premise of The Chaos Class is deceptively simple, yet universally relatable. It chronicles the endless shenanigans of a group of overaged high school students, lovable rogues who have failed their classes for years and are more interested in planning elaborate pranks and escaping school grounds than in any form of education. This legendary classroom of students is the titular The Chaos Class, a found family of misfits whose bond is the film's emotional core. Their world of comfortable rebellion is shattered by the arrival of a new vice principal, the stern but deeply caring Mahmut Hoca, whose mission is to bring order to the chaos class. This central conflict between youthful rebellion and loving authority is what makes the chaos class resonate so powerfully with audiences everywhere, regardless of language or culture. The film's enduring international success is largely built upon its unforgettable characters brought to life by a cast of legendary actors. The most prominent of these is the character of İnek Şaban, played by the iconic Kemal Sunal, whose goofy innocence and brilliant physical comedy made him a superstar. His performance in the Chaos Class is a masterclass in comedic timing, a universal language of laughter that requires no translation. The success of the Chaos Class was so immense that it was impossible to contain in a single film, leading to a series of beloved sequels that expanded the legend of this unforgettable classroom. The first sequel, Hababam Sınıfı, The Chaos Class Fails the Class, continued the story with even more hilarious pranks and heartfelt moments, solidifying the franchise's place in cinema history. The series continued with Hababam Sınıfı, The Chaos Class is Waking Up, which saw the students of the Chaos Class facing new challenges and demonstrating their growth. Each sequel successfully recaptured the unique magic of the original The Chaos Class, proving that the formula of comedy, heart, and unforgettable characters was a powerful one. The international appeal of the Chaos Class franchise lies in its ability to tap into the universal nostalgia for school days, for the friendships that define our youth, and for the teachers who saw the potential in us even when we did not. The world of the Chaos Class is a world where every prank is a cry for attention, and every act of defiance is a test of love, making it a deeply human story. This incredible narrative depth is why the Chaos Class continues to find new audiences today through streaming and international film festivals. The original film Hababam Sınıfı and its direct sequels represent a perfect saga, a complete story arc that shows the evolution of the students from lazy pranksters to responsible young men, all under the watchful eye of their beloved teacher. The legacy of the Chaos Class is not just in its humor, but in its profound emotional impact. The final scenes of the original film are famously tear-jerking, demonstrating that the true foundation of the Chaos Class was always love and respect. This emotional core is what has allowed the Chaos Class to be compared to other great school films from around the world. It shares a spirit with stories about unconventional teaching and the power of found family. The financial and cultural success of the Chaos Class also provided a blueprint for the Turkish film industry, demonstrating the immense commercial potential of well-crafted ensemble comedies. The film's influence is seen in countless comedies that followed, but none have ever quite captured the perfect lightning-in-a-bottle chemistry of the original cast of the Chaos Class. For anyone looking to explore the rich history of Turkish cinema, Hababam Sınıfı, or the Chaos Class, is the essential starting point. It is a film that functions as both a hilarious comedy and a poignant drama, a snapshot of a bygone era that still feels incredibly relevant and alive. The enduring popularity of the Chaos Class and its sequels is a testament to the power of great storytelling, a story that began in a small classroom in Istanbul and grew to capture the hearts of millions of viewers across the globe, making the Chaos Class a true masterpiece of world cinema. The phenomenon of the Chaos Class proves that a story built on genuine emotion and relatable characters can break through cultural barriers and become a timeless classic for all generations to enjoy. The saga of the Chaos Class is a complete and fulfilling journey, a cinematic experience that will make you laugh until you cry and reaffirm your faith in the bonds of friendship and the guidance of great mentors, making the original film Hababam Sınıfı and its celebrated sequels a must-watch franchise. The very name The Chaos Class has become synonymous with a golden era of filmmaking, and its legacy continues to shine brightly as a beacon of comedic genius and heartfelt storytelling. This is the story of the Chaos Class, a film that started as a simple comedy and became a legend of international cinema.